The date was January 15th, 1978. At the Chi Omega House at Florida State University, the members were winding down, getting ready to get some sleep before class the next Monday morning. It was later in that night that some of the members were suspicious or felt that something wasn't right. Comes to find out, a murderer had gone from room to room, beating, sexually assaulting 4 women, 2 of which died. The killer then ran to an apartment complex a few blocks away where he found Cheryl Thomas, a 21-year-old dance student. Cheryl Thomas was found by her roommates severely beaten. She was laying on the floor. Blood was everywhere. She suffered from a broken jaw and a severed nerve from her left ear. The killer used a wooden log to beat the women in the head until they died. Luckily, Cheryl Thomas survived. She has no memory whatsoever of her attacker. One minute she was laying in bed asleep, the next she woke up in a hospital bed. On this very day, January 24th, 2019, marks the 30th anniversary of this serial killer's execution. His name is Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was born in Burlington, Vermont on November 24th, 1946. His mom's name was Eleanor. At the time, she was 22 when she had him, and she was unmarried, which is very frowned upon during that time, and her parents were very religious. Eleanor gave birth to Ted at a home for mothers who were not married. It was then later that she took him to Philadelphia to be with her parents. To hide the fact that she had a baby out of wedlock, Ted Bundy grew up as the adopted son of his grandparents, and they told him that his mother was actually his sister. Eleanor then moved to Tacoma, Washington a few years later with Ted, and it was in 1951 that she married Johnny Bundy. Ted took his name. Looking from outside perspective, Ted Bundy grew up in a normal, average-looking working-class home. As a kid, he was very shy and had problems making friends, although he was very smart. At a young age, he became interested in death. At age 3, it was reported that he had a weird fascination with knives. As he got older, in his teen years, he became a peeping Tom, spying on women changing, and then he would steal from anyone when he saw something he wanted. As he grew older, however, he became more social and more confident. Ted Bundy attended college at the University of Washington, where he fell in love with a woman. However, that did not end well, and later in life, when he'd start killing women, he would copy or base his killings off of women that looked like his girlfriend. Most of his victims were attractive students that had darker, long hair. He graduated in 1972 with a degree in psychology. Go figure. He was then accepted into law school in Utah right after. There is speculation as to when Ted Bundy began his killings, but on January 4th, 1974, he attempted to kill and sexually assault an 18-year-old girl. However, he failed, and she survived. A few weeks later, he broke into another woman's house and got carried away and decapitated the woman. She was found headless. Because of him, within 6 months, 8 women were dead in the Washington area. In October, after he enrolled into law school, he kidnapped and killed 3 girls, one of which was a daughter of a police officer. The following month, he kidnapped a girl by pretending to be a police officer. However, that girl escaped. But within the same day, he committed another murder, and the girl's body was never found. By the end of 1975, he had killed 5 more women, 4 from Colorado and 1 from Utah. Most of the time, in order to lure women in, Ted Bundy would pretend to be hurt. He would wear like an arm sling and act hurt or act as if he needed these women's help and played on their emotion to get them closer to him, where he would grab them and put them in his car. Ted Bundy's car was a 1968 Volkswagen Beetle. Ted Bundy had removed the passenger side seat and either would put it in the back of the back seat or in the trunk. He did this so that when he grabbed the women, he could tie them up and put them in his car, and no one from the roads level would be able to see them down there. His car was also at the Alcatraz East Museum. Ted Bundy usually strangled his victims or bludgeoned them to death. He would also mutilate their bodies after death. To relive the crime, he would revisit the dump site or even take the bodies back to his home to further sexual gratification. As the body count increased, as Ted Bundy moved from one place to another, people became more suspicious. People had actually contacted the authorities about Ted Bundy, but sadly authorities kind of just brushed it off because of his upstanding character, or he was clean cut, sadly. It was his charisma that kept him from getting caught so long. Not to mention the fact that forensics back in the 70s weren't obviously what they are now. Ted Bundy was arrested in August of 1975 after fleeing from a patrol car. And they searched his vehicle. They found his burglary stash, which included like rope, a knife, gloves. However, none of the items they found in his car directly linked him to any of his crimes or any crimes. So they had to let him go. Authorities were still surveilling him until he had kidnapped and assaulted another girl. Interesting enough, when Bundy was arrested, he actually escaped from jail after being transferred from Utah to Colorado for another trial, but he was captured within that week. He then escaped jail a second time, but this time no one knew he was missing until 15 hours later. So he had a head start, and that's when he made his way to Florida to commit the Chi Omega murders that I talked about in the beginning. Ted Bundy's last murder was a 12-year-old girl. He was caught in 1978. He was gone for months before he was caught again by police. During Ted Bundy's trial, he confessed to over 30 homicides, although many people believe there was way more than what he confessed to. In July 1979, he was convicted of the 2 murders of the Chi Omega girls at FSU. What got him convicted was the evidence of they molded his teeth and matched his bite marks to one of the victims' bite marks that he left on their butt cheek. This is a photograph during the trial examining photographs of his teeth and the molding used for evidence. And at the Alcatraz East Museum that I went to in Gatlinburg, they actually had the molding there. So I got to see that. It was really cool. Bundy was sentenced to death by electric chair, and he died today, January 24th, 30 years ago today. So I found some fun facts. I mean, you know, not fun because it was murder, but some interesting facts during my research for the Ted Bundy case. I discovered that the electric chair that they used to kill him, his name was Old Sparky. And after his execution, many people outside of FSU set off fireworks. Ted Bundy's body was cremated and wanted to be scattered by the Cascade Mountains in Washington, where at least 4 of his victims were killed. Before Ted Bundy was arrested, he was dating a Carol Ann Boone. Ended up getting married during his penalty trial to see what he'd be sentenced for. In 1982, Boone gave birth to a baby girl, which she then claimed Ted Bundy was the father. It wasn't until a few years before he was about to be executed that somehow she finally realized, you know, oh, maybe he did kill these women. And she broke up all contact with him. So during my research, I had watched Ted Bundy's last interview video that they have of him before he was executed. And in the video, he claims that he was a normal child. He didn't grow up in an abusive home. Everything was fine. He blames the way he became on pornography. That it started off just watching it just to watch, and then he got to the point where he wanted to act on what he was watching, and then it just became unreachable and that's what drove him to kill and get sexual gratification from it. In the interview, Bundy says that there's a whole lot of violent men in this prison that he got to spend time with, and the one thing that they all have in common was pornography. So I thought that that was interesting, that in the last of his final days here on Earth, he says, if I wouldn't have watched pornography, maybe I wouldn't have turned out this way. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope it wasn't too gruesome for you, because I think it'll get worse. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Like and subscribe if you liked my video, and I will see you guys next week.